Hello, and welcome back to the Elevate Your Running podcast. I am here with Michelle Baxter, and I am so excited to have this conversation with her today. You might know her from Instagram, and she is the Runner's Plate on Instagram. She has an incredible blog. She's also a running coach, and she was recently at the Indianapolis Marathon and absolutely smashed her marathon time and ran a 2:56 as a master's runner. And I'm just so excited to have this conversation today, all about running faster, running stronger as a master's runner. Welcome to the podcast, Michelle.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Hi, thanks so much for your time. I'm so excited we were able to connect pretty quickly after the Indianapolis Marathon and cheer each other on and support each other in our PRs. And you had such a fabulous day. And I know there's probably parts to that day that weren't fabulous or parts to that training that weren't fabulous. So it's going to be one of the things that we talk about today. But for our audience who maybe doesn't know you or they don't follow you on Instagram, who is Michelle?
Yeah, I'm Michelle Baxter. I live in Minnesota, but had spent a good chunk of time. We spent 15 years in Alaska. So a lot of people on Instagram found me that way, running in the snow and the cold and on my treadmill. So I am an avid runner. I've been running since I was 10 years old and just continue to love running. I continue to share my progress and my story because I love what I do. Like I'm not trying to win any win any accolades, but just I love running, and I had these notions that I couldn't be faster after babies and I couldn't be faster in my 40s, and I wasn't willing to settle. So I kept going after those big goals and just trying to better myself every day and every year, and here we are.
Yeah, here we are. You really broke down that wall of, maybe having those ideas or thoughts that you're not able to be faster after you have children. You're not able to continue to grow, to learn, to excel, to get faster in the sport, especially as a master's runner. But you have done that and you have persevered and created this really great space of running. Can you kind of take us through maybe your marathon journey? Like how many marathons you've run, kind of where you started with running, where the marathon has taken you. This isn't, Indianapolis was not your first sub 3 marathon. So kind of share with us kind of that story around your first sub 3.
Yeah, Indianapolis Marathon was my 14th marathon. I started running marathons in 2010, which is also when I started my blog, kind of just to document that journey because I was living in Alaska. I wanted to be able to connect with friends and family back here in Minnesota. And so I started out my blog and just continued to document my marathon journey in the blog. So I haven't run like a crazy amount of marathons over the course of those 14 years. Sometimes I've run 2 marathons a year. That's about like been the max. And sometimes I've run none because of time off with being pregnant, postpartum, COVID, things like that. So over the years, I've just continued to, first, my goal was up to BQ, and that took me a few tries before I got to my BQ time. And then from there, it was just like, I just curious to know how fast it could get. And it was in 2013 when my now coach, at the time she wasn't coaching me, we had met through our blogs. I went to visit her, and I had my marathon PR at that time was 3:17, and she's like, I really think you could run a sub 3 hour marathon. For me, that was like, that's a lot of time to cut off, it's over
Yeah.
17, almost 18 minutes. But it was so inspiring to me because it was the first time that anybody like truly believed in me. Like I had good coaches in high school and college, and it wasn't that they didn't believe in me, but this just took it to another level of how authentic she seemed and sounded. And because she had followed my journey through my blog, and she got to see pieces like where I could improve my training and how we could train a little differently to get to that next level of fitness. And I ended up getting pregnant, and we started again after I had my first child. And pretty quickly, I was able to make really good strides. And with about 18 months postpartum, I ran. Well, actually, my first marathon postpartum was 9 months postpartum, and I the course was short. The course ended up being 25.2 miles, And so when I crossed the finish line, there's a photo of me running a sub 3 hour marathon, but it was only because the course was short. So they had to adjust
Lot
everyone.
short.
They had to adjust everyone's time, and the adjusted time was like 3:07. But continued to gain fitness, and then my first real attempt at a sub 3 hour marathon was in 2016 at Grandma's Marathon, and I training had gone so well, and I had run a sub 125 half, which my coach told me that sets me up really well for a sub 3 hour marathon. And that day at Grandma's Marathon, it was like 77 degrees and 77% humidity, like very hot and humid. I mean, it's especially for running. Like they changed the flags on the course to black when it's
Yeah.
like severe, like you may want to consider dropping out of the race. So very hot and humid that day. And coming from Alaska didn't help. Wasn't able to have any heat acclimation training whatsoever. So that was a really tough race. Yeah, I'm trying to remember I don't even know if I really remember what I ran, maybe like 3:10 or something, 3:12. So that was hard. And then I ended up getting a good 9-10 month long injury where I was diagnosed with a hip labral tear.
Mm.
And that was really, really hard because I had just come off this very high of being very fit and then spent almost a year rehabbing it, making it stronger, and working through that injury. And so that was really hard. And I've had a lot of people reach out about that because I've written blog posts regarding that hip labral tear. And I did not have to have surgery, fortunately. Did a lot of strength training, ART, active release technique with a sports chiropractor, and got like a steroid injection and stuff. So that was that was a long time. And then finally from there, I trained for a couple more marathons. I got really, really close again. Ran 3:02 at Twin Cities Marathon, and then I had my second son. So just like lots of breaks in there, lots of ups and downs. Finally in 2021, training through COVID, I was actually pretty motivated through COVID. I know people are like hit and miss and what if they fall off the bandwagon or they continue to train. I just knew that marathons would eventually come back. So I'm like, I'm going to keep training. I feel like my fitness is getting better. So then in 2021 at CIM, I was finally able to run my sub 3. And actually 3 months prior, I had just run 3:01 at a marathon in Anchorage. So close once again. And then 3 months later, I finally did it at CIM. So that was just like the icing on the top. Like, I don't usually cry after marathons. I'm not much of a crier, but that just hit different because I had worked so hard, 8 years, like 5 failed attempts, two babies, COVID, like all of that, and just finally was able to do it. So it was really hard through all those years, but being able to finally succeed and do it, it was just like the cherry on the top at that race. So
Yeah, absolutely. I can absolutely understand that perspective of when you have this big goal and you're going after it, whether it's a sub 4 hour marathon, a BQ time, you're going after that sub 3. It takes a long time typically to go after big goals, right? If we have these big goals, it's going to take several attempts or years or stepping stones to get there. Otherwise, the goal isn't necessarily considered, big enough if it's easy to get. And you went through a lot of ebbs and flows over the course of your marathon journey. Was there any time where you were kind of doubting yourself in this journey? I mean, I know you had some races like Grandma's can be a pretty fast marathon, but when you have the hot and humid Duluth, Minnesota, that just takes it all away. I've run the half. I mean, that course is incredible, but I mean, Minnesota heat and humidity is a whole different level. And so that can be really defeating. Was there any point along maybe your timeline of going sub 3 where you really doubted and questioned if you could do that?
all the time. All the
We
time. I mean, definitely periods of doubt because it's like getting pregnant with my first. You kind of have these notions that you're not going to be able to be as fast once you have kids. But then there would
Mhm.
be like a couple of people blogs that I would be following, and I'm like, wait, they did it, so why can't I? Uh, through the injury for my hip labral tear and other little injuries along the way. Yeah, it's like, what am I doing? Why? What is this? Is this really all worth it? Can I even do this? Having my second son, I'm like, surely, I mean, I'm probably not going to get faster after another baby. And then I was 36, getting closer to 40, and you just have this, like, once again, you have these notions because you see like the pro runners, they retire in like their early to mid 30s, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, they're probably past their prime. So that, I mean, you just think that's going to be you too. So, yes, lots of doubts. But at the same time, like deep down in my gut, I knew I could do it. Like I knew I could do it. And it wasn't anybody telling me I couldn't. It wasn't friends and family or people even on social media telling me I couldn't. They've always been very supportive. Just you just wonder, you just don't know. And so you start to have these doubts. But like I said, deep down I knew that I could do it. And I mean, yeah, lean on my husband a lot, lean on my coach for stuff like when I start to have those doubts. But like I said, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I was like, I feel like I can do this.
Yeah, when you have that feeling like deep inside you, could be like this gut feeling, this dream that you want to go after. And maybe it's one of those dreams too, where like maybe if you don't necessarily get there, but you've done everything possible to do it, you can make peace with it. But you can make peace with sub three two times over, and maybe it's not your last time either. You ran CIM in 2:58, which was really incredible. And then you took another 2 minutes off of your marathon time at Indianapolis, which was incredible. How do you feel like the Indianapolis marathon prep? How is it different than the CIM prep?
So CAM, going to CAM. So I actually ran CAM in 2021 and 2022. Both were sub three, both were right 258. And those, both of those I was self coached. And then now in India, going into Indianapolis, I did work with my coach. And she had me doing actually less mileage, which was, I would hear that. I would hear people say, I cut back my mileage and I was able to get faster. I'm like, I could never do that. That is not me. I'm a high mileage runner. Usually for my marathons, I'm putting in 80 to 100 miles a week. And for this,
Yeah.
I put like 60 to 70 miles in, but the intensity was higher. So I was on the track weekly, close to weekly, doing 800s, 300s, 1,000 meter repeats. And then, usually 2 workouts a week. So I would do a workout, have 2 easy days, do another workout, 2 easy days, another workout. Was typically the structure of my training. Yeah, and even the springtime, early summer, it was around 50 miles a week, that's much lower than I have been in the past. But like I said, the intensity was there, and shorter track interval workouts and shorter tempo too. So I would do 10 by 3 minutes at tempo, stuff like that, rather than like 3 by 10 minutes. So as we got
Yeah.
closer to the marathon, then it got bulkier. But I only did one 20 plus mile run. I did a 23-mile marathon pace workout, and that was the only one I did, which was, once again, that was also less than I've done in the past. Usually I'll do 3 to 5, 20, 25, 20 plus mile runs. We did kind of got an abbreviated marathon build with my racing schedule at the tail end of the summer. So that
Yeah.
wasn't quite ideal. I do want to focus now moving forward for the next 3 to 4 months. I do want to focus like solely on the marathon, and then run another like early spring, late fall, or late winter marathon and see what I can really do. So, I mean, I will never say speed isn't, we all know speed is never going to hurt you in the marathon. So a
Yeah.
lot of my
Yeah.
summer was spent with speed. Obviously it translated well. And yeah, so shorter interval style workouts, a lot of strides I would
Yeah.
do once or twice a week, which I've done them in the past, but not like I did these last several months. So little things like that definitely made a difference in this build.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool to take a look and say, okay, I mean, there's still areas of improvement in the marathon. We can still get faster. Let's make these small adjustments, these tweaks to the training, and we see this really great improvement. I mean, 2 minutes, or maybe it was close to 3 minutes in the marathon PR. at that level is astounding. Like that's incredible. And adding the striders, adding the speed, reducing maybe the overall fatigue and just having you feel a little bit sharper, a little bit speedier, was your secret weapon to the 256 at Indy, which is so great. How did you feel going into the race, knowing that your training looked so vastly different? I mean, yes, it was small tweaks, but if you are used to running 80 to 100-mile weeks and you are reducing that to 60 to 70 weeks or 60 to 70 miles, I know as a high mileage runner, like when you reduce down, it just doesn't feel the same. It feels like a very light week. 60 miles can feel like a breeze, like a recovery week. How did you kind of go into Indianapolis knowing like you had done enough and that you were ready?
Well, I definitely had some doubts going into the race, especially as like 4 weeks out, 5 weeks out, when I realized I'm only going to have time for one 20 plus mile run. But that 23-mile with marathon pace work was really reassuring. I nailed my paces. It felt good. So I carried most of that into the race. You know, we know that you can have a bad workout that doesn't define your fitness, but a good
Yeah.
run and a good workout does. So that was kind of what I carried into the race. And I had a lot of other races go well. So I had a 10-mile race go well. I had a half marathon race go well. So I also carried those knowing I had those under my belt. And, you know, I had 13 other marathons under my belt, even though it had been 2 years since I had run a marathon. I had a miscarriage last fall. And so I wasn't able to run a marathon. So it took some time. Yeah, just didn't run a marathon last fall. And then it had been, like I said, almost 2 years since I ran a marathon. So, um, yeah, I mean, definitely still some doubts, but then you just try to focus on the things that did go well during your build. And it was, like I said, it was a shorter build. Um, but I still had reassurance that the fitness was there necessary to carry me to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that confidence, that belief. Well, I'm really sorry to hear about your miscarriage. That's a very difficult situation to be in. How do you feel like your you had mentioned that you had run some tune-up races. Is that something that typical in your training that you do, or is that something that was new for this prep? And did those tune-up races kind of like give you some confidence along the way too? Or was it just, did you take those tune-up races as more of a workout? Can you kind of just lean into your strategy around those?
I often run quite a few races during the summer, early fall. In Alaska, where we live, that was the only time to run races unless you
Yeah.
flew somewhere during the winter. So I capitalized on running as many races as I could there. And it's kind of the same kind of thing here in Minnesota. Like most of our races and competitive races are during spring, summer, and fall. So I just enjoy racing, and so that's I enjoy racing. I enjoy seeing where my fitness is. So it was a combination of doing it because I enjoy it, but then to train, kind of train as well. But I raced all those, the 10-mile, the half marathon, and like I said, just as fitness check-ins, just as practice for racing, practice for enduring that hurt that you often have. So yeah, it was definitely part of the plan.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, tune-up races can be such a big confidence booster, not only on the fitness side of things to say, okay, this is the outcome goal. This is the outcome data from that tune-up race. This is how it applies to your A goal race for the season. But of course, like you mentioned, practicing that racing skill set, which is such a huge skill set to have in your tool belt as you're going into your A goal race, especially with a fast marathon. Marathons are just hard in general, whether you're racing or running them, but racing the marathon is a slightly different level than running a marathon and being in that pain cave and flowing through that. So I love that you have the 10 miler and the half built into your cycle leading into Indianapolis. How did you feel like your recovery has changed over the years? And did you feel like you needed to do less recovery in this cycle because the volume was lower, but the intensity was higher?
Gosh, I hadn't really thought about that. I typically take a day off every 10 days. I think it got stretched to 12 or 14 days by the end of this marathon build. I definitely enjoy those days. I work really hard for those 10 to 12, 14 days. And so when a break comes, I embrace it. I would say, as far as recovery, I have been surprised how well I can recover even at 41 years old. Of course, sleep is huge. So aiming for at least 8 to 9 hours is my what my body prefers. So trying to get that much sleep, and then obviously good nutrition. Like those are the two biggest things that we can do. So good nutrition, and then eating prior to my runs. I used to run fasted in the morning for 15 years or so. I would run fasted and
Yeah.
then
I
had
think
no
a lot of
idea.
us
Like
did.
that was contributing to so many of my injuries. I know. And since I've incorporated a small snack before my morning runs, I have been injured like once within the past 5 years. And that was
Yeah.
only because I wore the Alpha Flies, the Alpha versions 2, on a half marathon. And my hamstrings did not like that. I got a hamstring strain. So other than that, I've been like very injury free, just incorporating that pre-run snack and then trying to get protein and carbs within 30 minutes after finishing my run. So those couple of things. Uh, I will say I started taking creatine
Mhm.
this spring, and I really think that has helped as well. It's from Previnex. It calls it a Muscle Health Plus because it has more than just creatine. It has like BCAAs in it and a couple other things that just help with muscle recovery and building muscle. And I think that helped. And I would say those are kind of the big things for recovery for me, and just keeping stress low, things like that, trying to keep like other life stress, work stress low. So otherwise, yeah, I mean, I'm really fortunate in how well I can recover at 41 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, because it doesn't feel the same as it did maybe 10 years ago, like getting out there and running and just how you feel running or how you feel after. So it's really inspiring to see your recovery tactics, and those are like the bread and butter, like recovery strategies, right? The sleep, the rest days, making sure that you're eating before, during, after your big efforts, fueling well, and then of course creatine, which has come up quite a bit in conversation over the last week or so. So it might be like that new secret weapon in recovery. But like, what specifically have you noticed with taking creatine, and kind of what is your like daily intake? Like, what does it kind of look like for you?
Daily intake is it's the 5 milligrams. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting now. The monohydrate. There's a
That's okay.
I don't know, whatever the one scoop of the Previnex.
Perfect.
And like I said, I mean, I noticed in the recovery, I think that's the biggest thing. And then as far as, because people will talk about like muscle definition, and I don't know if I paid close enough attention. My strength training, that would be another piece that really helped me get to sub 3 was I work with a strength coach once a week. We just do a virtual session, and it was about 3 months prior to my first time running sub 3. I started working with her, incorporating her style of strength work, and that has really helped me also. And just leg turnover, being strong on hills, because where I live, I don't have any hills to train on. But when I do run hills in races, I feel really strong, and I contribute that to the type of strength training that she does. So she has me do a lot of eccentric work, and we do 1 rep to failure. So we do eccentric work, 1 rep to failure, and if I haven't failed out, we do an isometric hold, and they are so hard.
Bet they are.
So hard. Like the pain level that I have during those strength sessions is like worse than the marathon. Like I remember running the marathon and I'm like, this is nothing compared. I did like a 2-minute wall sit. Was during one of my last strength sessions before the
Yeah.
marathon, and my quads were burning and just like shaking. And I remember during the marathon, I was like, okay, this is not. I can do this. Like I can continue to push hard. Really, it was kind of my lungs and my breathing that kind of gave out during the marathon. My legs were like, I mean, they were in pain, but the pain that I have during those strength sessions doesn't even compare. So yeah, strength training was another piece of that puzzle to get me to the sub 3 hour.
Yeah.
Because we not like most people know now, if you're kind of tuned in, like lift heavy. Like don't be afraid to lift heavy as a woman. It's really good. So that we do that, but then we also kind of take it to another level with the isometric holds and the eccentric contractions, and just getting deep into the
Huge.
muscle tissue. So if anything, the definition has come from that, and I'm sure the creatine also helps as well. But yeah, creatine, and then also, the idea of creatine is like when you're at the tail end of a workout, you can continue to push yourself, even if without enough creatine in your body, you might kind of fall off and not be able to
Yeah.
feel as good at the tail end of a workout. So I would say that has helped as well.
Yeah, so a few different benefits to it, which is incredible. I want to lean into the strength training piece that you just mentioned. I take reformer Pilates and I feel like I love it for just the movement that I get, the challenge I get. It's very, very different from running and tempo and track workouts because the movements are all very slow on an 4 to 8 beat count. So it can be something that you're in this like it's actually more mindset than physical when you're in that room. And I do that for training and running and racing purposes. And it kind of sounds similar to your strength training. So you added strength training in to your plan when you were going after sub 3. How many days a week are you doing it now? And what days do they typically fall on?
So, I mean, I will say prior to working with my strength coach, I always did strength train. I've always strength trained twice a week, 30, 45 minutes. I would go to the gym and use the squat rack, do some bicep curls, the lat pull downs, things like that, or even like hamstring curls on the ball. So I've always been pretty good about strength training. I've always enjoyed it. But then the style of strength training that I did with my strength coach, it was just very different than this style that we did. So I continued to strength train twice a week, almost always on the hard days. So keeping the hard days hard, easy days easy. So it's usually I try to go 4 or more hours after my workout has ended, give my body a little bit of time to recover, get some nutrition in, and then strength train later on in the afternoon. And one time with my strength coach for a virtual session, and then the other time on my own. And, I mean, I try to push myself as hard as my strength coach does, but she pushes me way harder. And so I've kind of learned what to do, but I continue to work with her because of how hard she pushes me. I know I would not push myself as hard without her being there
Yeah.
and telling me to keep those isometric holds for another 10 seconds when I just would give up if she wasn't there.
Those 2-minute wall sits, like, wow. Yeah.
It was yeah, it's very challenging. So, but very good. And like I said, it's helped me just be stronger as a runner for hills, for getting that good knee drive, core, because you see a lot of people their form starts to fall apart at the end of a long race, whether
Yeah.
it's a marathon or not. So keeping that good core, good posture. I mean, gosh, even we sometimes forget how full body running is, but even my triceps were sore after the marathon. Like, why would you think your triceps would be sore? But no, my triceps were. It was just one arm, so I don't know. It was like that is
Were you carrying a
proof.
handheld or
No,
anything? No. Okay.
no, that is proof that running is a full body workout.
Yeah, absolutely. It totally is. I'm a big believer that if like a strong core makes for a strong runner for sure. And focusing in on those little areas really does move the needle. And if you are someone that's maybe looking to run faster and accomplish big goals, like just take a look at one thing that you can improve on. And then, of course, time's going to pass and you can eventually just build and build and build like Michelle has over the years of racing marathons. And it's so cool. It's so inspiring. I have to think maybe the indie course was part of like the soreness. I know I was dodging potholes and like just the road itself. And I definitely have a few race photos where you can tell I'm like leaning over to one side to like shift to get back in line. So maybe it had something to do with the road conditions. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what for sure.
It's a good laugh. Well, I mean, your story is just so, so inspiring of going after not two, but running three sub 3 marathons, which is so, so cool. How do you stay motivated and committed to running when there are those ebbs and flows, when you have those little niggles or you have those moments or seasons where you're not training or you're not seeing the results? Like, what still gets you out the door? Because I'm a big believer that, like, all the consistency over the years has also attributed to your success, right? Also, I mean, you're so dedicated and you're creating all these wins in the 1% areas in strength training and mobility and recovery and nutrition. But what would you say really keeps you going after it?
That deep, like, gut belief that I can be better, like, get faster, get stronger. I mean, I do love the process, so that helps
Yeah,
on a day-to-day basis, just getting out the door and going for my daily run. That helps, but at the end of the day, like, your why has to drive you more than anything. So for a lot of my why goes back to college, my college days. I was a very average, below average college runner. I dealt with some anemia or some breathing issues, and I just could never quite find my stride and never quite get enough fitness to really show what my true capability was. And so it's like over the years, just proving to myself and proving to my college self that those were not, I knew that I could be better and be faster. And so that's kind of carried me over the years. And once again, like proving to myself and to other women that you can be faster after babies. You can be faster after 40. So I mean, I still think that if I'm sure there's an element of being on social media that drives me to show that. But I think even if I wasn't on social media, I'd still be going after these big goals. My husband my husband says I would, so I don't believe him. So yeah, there's like, an element of like wanting to show other people that you can do these have these big goals for yourself as a mother, and then as a master's runner. And then but then I see other people do it. Like I said,
yeah,
I've seen other people become faster after having their kids. I've seen other people be faster in their early 40s. So I'm like, why can't that be me too? So,
that's
that
right.
motivates me. So it's just like a trickle down effect. Like I'm motivated by other people. Hopefully I can motivate some people. And we just like making those and doing those things to because you love them, but then also motivate people along the way.
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest, I think, gifts that running can give, both to the person that is inspiring and the inspired. And it's just really cool. How do you feel like your why and wanting to inspire other people show up in the race when things start to get dark or when things start to get hard? Or where does your mindset kind of go in the last 10K of the race?
And it kind of varies from race to race
Hmm.
what kind of pulls me to the end. Sometimes it's recalling on a really hard workout that I nailed, that okay, I did it then, I can do it now. I
Yeah,
continue to push. Sometimes it's remembering how hard childbirth was and how much pain labor was. Like, okay, this is what I'm experiencing now is nothing compared to that.
I
Yeah,
use that
sometimes
as a
it's like,
coach.
what's that?
Yeah, I use that as a coach for all of my mother runners. I'm like, channel giving birth and like using that because that I think trumps everything. And I don't have kids, so I don't know, but I just like have that feeling that that can like tap into a whole different level.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then for my mantra for Indianapolis was your well is deep. And so I
Mm,
repeated that to myself. Your well is deep. Like I can continue to push. Yes, I'm hurting, but I know I have more to give. So that was my mantra for that race. And it changes. Sometimes it's like, even when things are going well in a race, I like still talk myself up. Like, I feel good. Okay, let's capitalize on this feeling. Let's continue to push. Let's not back off because things are feeling good. Like, continue to push. I've used things like I've trained harder than 99% of the people out here. Now, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I tell myself.
And that's okay. Sometimes you have to tell yourself whatever is gonna motivate you to, like, keep going.
Yeah, yeah. It's I would say that's kind of more in if I am right, like the races in Anchorage were small, and so I knew all my competitors. So especially if I was like coming up on a competitor or trying to hold off a competitor, that was what kind of a tactic I would use. Is I've trained harder than my other competitors, so you can finish in front of them. So yeah, I mean, the one thing I have kind of learned over the years, if you do find yourself going into a dark place or just a more of a negative headspace, you may be low in glycogen. And so take your fuel. So
Yeah.
there was a couple times during the marathon, like, oh, I was starting to feel hard. I felt myself get negative, and I was like, wait, it's been almost 30 minutes since I took my last gel. Let's take another gel. And often that can help too. So even little things like that
Yeah.
to help just to help you stay motivated. And then I was with a group of people, 10, 12, maybe even close to 15 at times, most of the race. And so it was just like staying latched onto those people and trying to and working with them to throughout the race. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. I'm a big believer in that. I was running with the 305 pace group for for at least half of the race. And then I kind of lost them in this very, like, I just kind of slowed down. I wasn't really focused. I wasn't really paying attention, which is like kind of a big mistake because if you can latch on to a group, it can make the pace feel a little bit easier or it gives you a bit more of a why to hold on because you can kind of feel the other people in the group also working, you're working together, and it can create like a really beautiful experience if you want it to be. And of course, with the gelling and the fueling and any little bit to get your mindset back into that, okay, I'm ready to go. I can do this, referring back to workouts that you've nailed. Those are all great, great tips. I think anyone, whether you're looking to crush a huge PR, run a sub 3, sub 4, run a BQ, those are all tips that can help any runner get through the end of a marathon, which is, arguably like it's that distance, the last 10K, you can lose a lot of time, but you can also hold your time and run a really strong day. What advice do you have to other master runners who want to continue improving their times? Shout out to Elite Sarah Hall. She's, I think, 41, 42, and she's still like crushing it out there. But what advice do you have to other masters runners who are looking to improve their marathon time or improve their running times? If they're starting to feel their age a little bit or they're starting to feel like that recovery effort's really creeping up, to have them keep going.
Yeah, I mean, we talk, our training age also dictates a lot of what we're capable of. So if someone started training and training for marathons or any distance in their late 30s, they're going to have more years to capitalize on their fitness to stack those bricks and continue to get faster and stronger. Now, somebody like myself, I mean, I've been training more or less for 20 years, and so I really had to hone in on like the little things like nutrition, upping my protein more. I feel like I've upped my protein more this year. I also feel like that has helped. So getting a protein source in at every meal, every snack. And then the strength training aspect a couple of years ago, really trying that on almost a new style of strength training. Working with my coach again, because I was self-coached for a couple of years, but I kind of felt myself just doing the same workouts again, over and over, like doing the same workouts, the same style of structure each week. And so having that other person, even though we've worked together in the past, like I feel like each time we work together, it's a little bit different. So for somebody who's might be at a plateau, if you've been self-coach, try working with a coach. I mean, I'm a coach myself, but even so, I cannot stress how much that helps. You have somebody in your corner, somebody to when the days don't go well, the workout does not go well, you have somebody to talk to about it and kind of dissect it and maybe figure out you can do differently the next time, things like that. So working with a coach, I think supplements, like I said, creatine, I feel like that has helped. I mean, I also take a multivitamin and fish oil. I don't go crazy with the supplements. I'm not. I don't, it's not really me. So just a few like really good supplements. I've been hearing more about sodium bicarbonate. That's one
Yeah.
I'm tempted to experiment with. A little bit of mixed feelings about Morton's, the price of Morton's like $70 for 4 servings.
Yeah.
But I know there's some other sources out there. So yeah, trying to maybe hone in on like trying to fine tune your supplement regimen. If you
Mhm.
can, anything with your sleep, stress. Um, I mean, it's really kind of fine tuning. If you've been at it for a while, fine tuning those little things to figure out
Yeah.
where you can make little changes that will ultimately get you to that next level of fitness. And I wrote a blog post about like 7 things I've done differently this since this spring or this year that
Yeah.
have helped me, I think. And it's hard to know because you kind of make multiple changes at one time, but I these were 7 things that I've thought of that maybe have contributed, some probably more than others. Even like my form, I used to carry my arms down by my hips when I run because I
Yeah.
remember freshman year of track and field, one of the senior captains was like, "You need to run with your arms down by your hips." Well, more recently, I've came across this Instagram account. It's called the Balanced Runner. He's a guy out of Australia, and he's like has all his like you carry your arms high, and it was crazy how much it feels so natural. It feels better. And that's really the only anything anytime you make changes to your gait, it may feel awkward at first, but it should feel like you're smoother, you're exerting less effort, more fluid. So I carry my arms higher and who knows if I've been able to conserve energy that way, just making that small change. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe that's why the tricep kind of was burning at the end of Indy,
Maybe.
who knows? No, but I'm a big believer in, like, yeah, like, up-leveling all these different areas. Specifically, going into Indy, I also changed quite a few things, and it's like, yeah, you can't really pinpoint one thing in particular that's gonna move the needle, but if you are trying to do your best and knowing and saying like, okay, well, this is working for me for this cycle, so I'm going to lean into it. They could all be working together to create that breakthrough. You mentioned less stress and trying to keep your stress levels as low as possible. As you're a running coach, you're a business owner, you have children, you have a family, you're also training. How do you keep those stress levels on the lower end of the spectrum?
I mean, first of all, I would say like big life stress, like I have, you know, I have like privilege or just like very thankful for the things that I have. So, the big life
Yeah.
stressors I don't have to deal with. It could be like my kids stressing me out, but usually those are pretty fleeting. And so I would say like schedule wise, I try to schedule out as much as I can each day. And I don't necessarily do time blocking, but I have a list of things that I want to get done for the day, try to figure out when is best going to be to fit them in. Try not to let, I'm very much a multitasker and trying to, if like at my son's soccer game during halftime, I'm maybe answering Instagram DMs or in the car ride, I'm on my laptop working. So trying to just find those little pockets of time to maximize my time. And then as far as I mean, yeah, fortunately I work for myself and so I don't have to a boss or coworkers. I feel like that and just being my own boss is a big stress reliever and it's something I don't have to deal with. I love my job. I love what I do, so that helps. I have great family support. My husband's great supporter in my running goals and he gets the kids ready in the morning while I'm out running. Just little things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very, very blessed and have a lot to be thankful for. So I don't have to deal with a lot of the big stressors.
Yeah.
And then if things come up, just talking it out with my husband or trying to figure things out if something does become stressful, and then just trying to not let it stress me out and trying to change that mindset to put a positive spin on it or just like no, it's going to be okay. Like it seems just like everything kind of works out in the end and everything is it will be okay at
Yeah.
the end of the day.
Yeah, it really does. And it sounds like you're a solution oriented person too, of saying, like, okay, if something is kind of coming up and happening, let's find a solution to figure this out. And that's a really great place to be. And I think also the the idea of that we're stronger together, like running can be seen as such an individualized sport, but it really isn't, because for anyone out there who is chasing big goals and training, like, you get to have a support team. There's no other way around it. And to have kind of your squad and your support team with your family, your husband, your community, neighbors, like that helps to kind of elevate you, I'm sure, in times of like need, or times when you need, yeah, just that helping hand, or that pat on the back, or that belief in times that you need it. So that's really incredible. And it's one of the things that I really love about running too, is that it is kind of this more community aspect of, there's so many people getting us to the start line who may not be really seen and heard in the process, right? Because it's just focused on the training, but it really is such a team sport in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, my husband gets the kids ready in the morning, and I mean, I try to get out as early as possible, but they usually wake up while I'm out running, so he has to get them up. And my
Yeah.
second run, if he's not home, I'll try to take the boys with me, push the one in the stroller, the other one ride his bike. And so, you get creative, or I have my treadmill, but
Yeah.
there's still a lot that he has to do. I mean, he helps. Like if I'm out running for my second run, he's getting dinner ready for the rest of us. So, and then, yeah, I mean, even just like a sports chiropractor in Anchorage who helped me through a lot of injuries, even just having those people in your PTs and stuff
Yes.
like that. So, I mean, it's like you said, it's not always an individual sport.
Yeah, there's so many people that kind of contribute to the success of the athlete, which is really cool. I'm curious to know, what is your favorite marathon workout? Out of all the marathon cycles you've had 14 cycles. Like, what is your favorite workout to run? And that could be, as recent as, okay, so you had a track workout, you worked on speed, not necessarily a marathon workout per se, but it is contributing to the overall success of the marathon because it's making you faster, which is making marathon pace feel easier, which you averaged a 6:45 in Indianapolis. Or it could be a long tempo effort. Like, what's kind of like your favorite workout to run?
Say my two like confidence boosting workouts. The one that I did, it was 5 by 1 mile at 20 seconds slower than goal marathon pace, and then 1 mile at 20 seconds faster than goal marathon pace,
Nice.
oscillating between those two. So when I did it, I was aiming for a 6:50 marathon time. So I do it 7:10, 1 mile at 7:10, and then 1 mile at 6:30. So that
Mm-hmm.
that was a little bit slower than like the fast one was a little bit slower than threshold or tempo pace.
Yeah.
So for 10 miles, oscillating between those two paces. And that was a really good confidence boosting marathon workout. The other one is just 2 by 4 miles at goal marathon pace, 3 by 3 miles at goal marathon pace. Those big,
Yeah.
bulky marathon pace workouts within a long run, that's also really good. And honestly, oftentimes I would try to go a little bit faster than goal marathon pace, just so that on race day, marathon pace feels at least a little easier.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good strategy. It's all a balancing act to make sure, you're not like overcooking yourself in training, but if you can just go a little bit faster, which I did that too for the Indianapolis build, but it was in a very smooth, controlled way, it can really give you a lot of confidence knowing, if I can do this over here, whether it's a tune-up race or a little bit faster in the long run, I can certainly try my best in the marathon at this effort. You had mentioned going back into marathon training, maybe for spring marathon. What is like ahead of you for 2025? Have you thought about your goals, your race season? I know offline we were talking a little bit about the half marathon and trying to find a fast half. What do you have coming up next?
I'd like to do like a late spring or spring, like March, April. I would like to do a marathon at that time. I would focus solely on marathon training these next few months because my summer, early fall there was a lot of races sprinkled in there of various
Mhm.
anything. I mean, I did everything from the mile to half marathon before the marathon. So a lot of different race distances that I did last summer. So I didn't have a long build for the Indianapolis marathon. So I want to focus on the marathon for the next few months, see what I can do. Trying to find a fast marathon in March or April, which is proving to be a little difficult.
Yeah.
Seems like all the fast marathons are in the fall,
Yeah.
but I've got a couple that I'm thinking about. And then after recovering from that, I kind of have my set races that I did now here in Minnesota. And so I did Grandma's Half, which I was in the elite field for that, and that was really cool.
Fun.
Riding the bus to the start with Dakota Lindworm, like, oh my goodness, that was so cool.
That's so fun. I love that.
So I should be able to get into the elite field for Grandma's Half again, and then just a handful of races here in Minneapolis, mostly in Minneapolis, over the course of the summer, and then a later fall. I like to do a later fall marathon because I like to train through the summer, the early fall, and then
Yeah.
do a later fall marathon. I really would love to do Valencia. We'll see if
Yeah.
I can get into I don't know. We'll see once they open, if that's possible. That would be super cool. I would consider going back to CIM. It's just I love that race. I think it's just it's well put on. The course is great. There are not a lot of turns. The weather is often great.
Mhm.
It's competitive. There's lots of people to run with. So love
Yeah.
CIM. I've thought a little bit about Chicago, but it's a little earlier than I would like to do. But maybe I could do like Chicago and Houston type of thing. I don't know. So couple marathons
Ye
next year. The other tricky part is my husband's a farmer, and so the month of October is harvest, and it's a very, very busy season for him. So he's like, "You can't do a marathon from like middle of September to the beginning of November." I'm like, "Well, that's all, like all the marathons."
That's all of them.
So, but CIM, Valencia, beginning of December, those are a little bit better. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see yeah, that's kind of my
Yeah. That's so
rough.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Houston's such a great race experience too. If you haven't been there, it's very well organized. It's a very fast course. There's not a lot of turns, kind of the same. There's bits and pieces of like Chicago being fast and flat for the IM, no turns. So it's kind of the best of both of those races, I would say, as long as the weather holds out, because it can be pretty humid or warm depending on the year. I have a quick follow up question to your summer of speed. Did you end up PRing any of those shorter race distances as you headed into a shorter marathon block?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
actually set 5 PRs this year. So in the mile,
Oh,
5K. I did not run a 10K. I wanted to run a 10K. The one 10K that was flat and fast was just a couple weeks before Indy, and it was not a good. I would have missed out on big long run, and
yeah.
I couldn't take that risk. But
Yeah.
mile, 5K, 10 mile, half marathon, marathon. So five
There
new
we
PRs
go.
this year for me. So yeah.
I love that. And that's just such a big, I mean, I think that's a great way to end this episode of like, we've talked about on this podcast about creating training PRs. And then obviously, like, also, if you can get faster in the mile, faster in the fight, it will translate to the marathon even if you're not seeing it in the same cycle. Most people see it in the same cycle. It doesn't mean you have to see it in the same cycle, but it is building you up for that stronger 26.2. So if you are kind of struggling or plateauing in the marathon, I mean, Michelle had some great advice of switching either, your training structure, adding a coach to the mix. Maybe it's training a summer or a season of speed and PRing that mile, that 5K. That's really inspiring to see. And thank you so much for your time, Michelle. I really appreciated you and your story, everything you've done in the running community and the running space. And I am one of those people who is inspired by you and like chasing my own sub 3. I'm really excited to go after it in 2025. So thanks for everything that you do. I really appreciate you and your time coming on the podcast. Where can our audience connect with you and find you online?
Which is therunnersplate.com. And then Instagram account, same handle at the Runners Plate. Those are my two primary outlets that I post on. So, I mean, I've had my blog for 14 years, and so lots of content. I would say I'm moving into winter content. So, if any listeners are out there who lose motivation during the winter, I'm happy to offer my advice for like clothing recommendations because I've done a lot of winter running. It's not my favorite, but I'm too addicted. I say I'm too addicted to running to give it up during the winter.
Yeah.
Tested out a lot of gear, but I promise I can keep you warm
Great.
because I am always cold. So I have a blanket on my lap right now, fuzzy slippers.
We all need this content. I mean, winter running is just such its own vibes.
Yes. Oh, and everyone asks about shoes. I have special shoes for running on the snow and ice. So there is gear to keep you safe and keep you motivated. So yeah, those are my two primary outlets. And yeah, that's where people can find me. I have my own coaching business, personalized running or PR coaching, and I work with athletes one on one. And I also sell training plans. So both are. I love what I do. I love helping people. I love helping runners no matter. And I have a wide
Yeah.
range of abilities that I coach. So I have people who are run walkers. I have very advanced marathoners. I have people who don't really race it too much at all, but just use me for accountability. So you just love working with the wide range of people that have found me over the years.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think it's such a big testament too to your Instagram account and like wanting to help others because you help so many people through that platform alone. So that's really cool to have this space of also helping on like the clothing side, the winter running side, and of course the coaching side. So check out Michelle online and on Instagram. And thank you so much for your time today. And thanks everyone for listening. I hope you have a great day.